Hare Krishna. Welcome to all of you. Very happy to see all of you here.
Hare
I
Krishna.
think we had, I don't know, some of you may have been there. We had the last session of our Kartik month yesterday. It was a very huge gala gathering because everybody felt free from the corona. Whether they were actually free or not didn't matter to them. They all came together in hordes to the temple in spite of the rain, in spite of the bad weather, breathing a fresh air. And they had a gala time, dancing, having a great party because they were fasting. Some of them were fasting from grains for a month. Some of them were fasting from something for the past 5 days in Bhishma Panchaka. And yesterday they all together had a huge feast. And somebody said they're going to eat with a vengeance. And so they ate it out. They danced it out. They were having a gala time. So like we were very absorbed. And today is the first day after the 30 days of the Kartik month. And people are back to normal. And they don't like that life very much. They want to be under some strain and pressure of forcing somebody to accept spiritual life in a particular way. Some regulations, some rules, some vrata, some vow makes it more exciting at the end of it. Haha, we did it, like that. So yesterday was a day people celebrating the end of their vows and feeling great about it. Some of them were chanting 64 rounds of japa a day for the whole Kartik month. Some of them were doing 32 rounds of japa and doing parikrama in Vrindavana every day. Some of them were eating only once a day in the afternoon. All sorts of austerities people were following and singing the Damodara Shagatas. It was the end of their vrata yesterday, so they were feeling great guns. Similarly, unless we are forced to, we don't follow the Bhagavad Gita too. Am I right? If we didn't have a very regulated session of come on time on Friday evening at this time, answer this quiz. If you don't do it, etc., it makes us do it. We're all conditioned beings. We're going to discuss that conditioning, which is very interesting topic, especially for me. Conditioning of the human being to perform, reward and punishment and conditioning to do that. We're used to that. However, I just thought I'll share that with you today, and we will revisit a small portion of what we did last time. I gave you a session from Vrindavan. I was a little challenged at the last minute. I was given a place to do it, but at this last minute it was shifted due to some other reason, and I had to work myself through it. But I was determined to actually be with all of you from the holy land of Vrindavan. And we did the session from there with limited facility. At that time, I did tell you a lot about the amazing nature of the soul that Krishna speaks about. Ascharyavat paschati yenam, that shloka. Some see the soul as amazing, etc. And then we also discussed how we know now to some extent who we are in technical terms as per Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, we should know what we should be doing. Since I know my identity, since I know my title and my position, from that flows a job description. Right? So Krishna is slowly pitching that. First he is, instead of solving Arjuna's work problem, some people call it work-life balance in modern parlance. But instead of solving Arjuna's work-life balance problem, which he actually brought up, he didn't bother about the work, nothing. He straight away told him about, first, do you know who are you? He spent time on that through till now that we saw, almost till 30 shlokas that we saw. He explained matter, spirit, body, soul, and the differences, and how the soul is permanent and the body changes, it's in constant flux, even in this lifetime, and at the end of lifetime, it changes body. But there is a changeless core running through the spirit soul, the you, existential reality of yourself consistently, constantly, throughout, eternally. But we seem to be identifying so much with our temporary situation of the body because we think we are the body. That is the foundation problem. And Krishna attacks that problem first and first tells you what your identity should be and is. Even though you are now thinking that I am body, at least theoretically we should know that I am spirit, soul, I'm not that body. As you step out of this Bhagavad Gita class, the bodily concept of life will take over you again. It's so powerful. That's why Krishna is saying the soul is so amazing. The soul is there, that small, tiny thing is there in a huge blue whale, massive mammoth. And it is also there in the microbe that is attacking each one of us now. Can you believe that? How powerful the soul is? And what different, and it's all constant. So Krishna is explaining that very nicely to Arjuna till analytically. And that's what he calls here Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya means to count. Sankhya means to count. And Sankhya philosophy means to analyze bit by bit, piece by piece, and then put it together for an understanding. And that's what most of science does. Most of the education we do is based on that type of analysis. I've at least somebody who has done it, and we accept that without any questioning, with blind faith. Actually, science is full of blind faith. We'll talk about that later. But then religion is accused of being people with blind faith. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, you'll never think so. It's not that Krishna is telling you, shut up and believe me, you are spirit soul. Come on, get to work. He's explaining everything that he is saying so to Arjuna. And Arjuna is asking questions. He is not a dud who is just going to accept whatever Krishna says either. He's posing questions. He's analyzing himself and then deciding, I'll not fight. And then after he has decided, he's saying, what do you have to say about it? I'm willing to listen to you. And then Krishna is saying so. And then Arjuna is saying, wow, that sounds great. I think they'll accept that. That's the end of the Gita. So it's not that people who follow religion are simply dumb idiots who don't analyze anything. You look at the Sankhya Yoga that Krishna is presented in the 2nd chapter. He's using logic, he's using science, he's using rational, then he's using scripture, then he's saying, do it because I say so. All these things he's presenting. All these things he's presenting. No one can say, ever if he reads the Gita, that is simply a dumb guy's faithless position. You can never say that. So till now, Krishna has presented that, and he is now pitching in slowly. Therefore, since you know you are spirit soul, do you know what is your job? What's the job description? Now he's pitching in. It's very scientific the way Krishna is explaining. He understands it. It's a supreme teacher. He's not just an ordinary chota-mota corporation teacher who's just getting a monthly salary, corporation school or something like that, and just has to do his little job and get out and don't care for the students. He's an amazing teacher. So you must understand that till now we have spent time understanding who are you. Rather, who the hell are you, to put it in common parlance, to go deep inside. And we have understood that to some extent, and we're going to understand it even further and further as Krishna takes us on his spiraling understanding and knowledge. That's why you see the Bhagavad Gita is titled Contents of the Gita Summarized in the 2nd chapter. You see the heading? Contents of the Gita Summarized. So you'll see Krishna going in a circle around most of the important topics. Till now, he has given you Gyan, Jnana Yoga. With Gyan connecting you with the absolute. With Gyan connecting you with the reality of yourself. With Gyan connecting you from the relative to the absolute. So it's called Jnana Yoga. He's giving you analytical information. It's called Sankhya Yoga in technical terms. And then he's also now going to give you something about karma. And then Karma Yoga, he will tell him. Since you know who you are, you have a job description. What is that job description? And that's what we are going to get into now, today, as we move a little bit inside. Okay? I'm just doing a little bit of what shall we call backtracking and looking into what all things that we did, so that I'll put you in place. It takes 1 week of all of you being separated, and then we're getting together again. So sometimes it's necessary to take a little recap of what we did yesterday and then make it a little relevant. I hope you are following me. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, okay. So this is the last slide that I put forward to you. 1 second. Wow. Just give me a second. I think the fan is on, getting a cold. Okay. So I am just summarizing here on the screen, which you would have seen now. Krishna is explaining very nicely. You will see. 1 minute. Where is that? Yeah. So this is the shloka that Krishna said that everything about the soul is amazing. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidedam. Some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, doesn't understand him at all. And many of you said that it's me. I don't understand still. And welcome to the journey. You will feel like that. That's one important point that Krishna is explaining, and Prabhupada is explaining in great detail. It's about, when we say soul generally, we mean 2 personalities. One, excuse me, one is the Paramatma, this super soul, which you see on the screen now. The other one is the Atma, you and me. Both are situated inside this body. And don't think one is the other. In the 13th chapter, Krishna will go into greater detail in it. And he will explain that the Atma and the Paramatma both exist separately. You are not the Paramatma. You are not God. God is present inside you, in the heart. In the 13th chapter, that will come into greater detail. He's present inside. And you are also present inside the body. You are the proprietor of this body. And Prabhupada goes into the purport, and from the Upanishad, he quotes this verse. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno nishaya shochati muhyamanah jushtam yada pashyati anyamisham asya mahimanam iti vita shokah. Okay, Sita Lakshmi, can you read this translation on the screen?
Although the 2 birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties.
Thank you. So, 2 things, 2 birds in a tree. This tree is this body, the subtle body and the gross body together. In that, there are 2 birds sitting. One bird is very busy enjoying the fruits of the tree, and the other one like Prabhupada explains in the purport that you have read, which I'm going to ask Sujita to read now. This on the screen is an extract from the purport that Prabhupada has given.
Upanishad compare the soul and the super soul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual or atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend.
So, thank you, Sujita. The one bird is called the witnesser. He is the friend. He is watching the soul. Look at the amazing analogy given and look at the relationship. A good friend. He is the provider also. But amazingly, the one friend is not even looking at the other. He is completely friend unconscious. He is Krishna unconscious. So although the Lord is within our heart, we are not at all conscious of him. You see that? We're only conscious about ourselves as the body. We are not even conscious of ourselves as spirit soul. We think I am the body and we are very busy enjoying the fruits according to that. So therefore, in that consciousness, you don't even look at another person in that consciousness. What to speak of God sitting next to you? So don't confuse these two to be the same. That's the first point that I want to tell you. So important thing is that you are not that super soul. Please understand this very carefully. This is the biggest misunderstanding people have when they explain the Gita. But Krishna is very clearly telling you that you are not that supreme person. But mama evam sajiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Every living spirit soul is part and parcel of me. Mama eva amsha. So we are part and parcel of the Supreme Godhead. We may be qualitatively equal. Both are spirit in nature. But in quantity, the Lord is humongously different. Huge, infinitely. But you are infinitesimal. Very, very tiny. But in quality, you're the same. Just like if I take a drop of water, Prabhupada said, from the ocean and take it for analysis in the laboratory, I can say that in quality, the whole ocean is the same by analyzing that one drop. But in quantity, the ocean and the drop, there's no comparison, right? So quantitatively, you're not equal, okay? Then the super soul, the Paramatma, he fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. This is a quote from Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is a very important point. And people make a very big mistake conflating these two together. I am God. I am the Paramatma that Krishna is referring to in the Bhagavad Gita. Completely wrong. If you make that mistake, you'll never understand who you are. Neither will you understand who is the Supreme Godhead, nor will you understand this world. Because there, right in the start, there is a severe error. And that error only increases and increases, and the angle widens, creates a greater distance from you and the truth. So this foundational mistake, do not make. That's what I've written here. Thank God you're not God. You're saved from all of you. Having said that, Krishna then, like I said, pitches in the next 7 shlokas from 31 onwards. He pitches about why you should fight. Based on the arguments that Krishna gave, he defeats that one by one. And it's very, very interesting arguments that Krishna puts forward. If you look into the Bhagavad Gita, which is there in front of you, I presume that it is there in front of you. If you open it, if you don't have the Gita, please get the Gita of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada as it is, and keep a hard copy version with you, I tell you, it is the greatest of investments you've ever made. It's a pretty small amount of money, hardly anything. And if any one of you wants it, please tell our organizers, they'll ship it to you immediately, wherever, or arrange to ship it to you from wherever. But you must have a copy of this. It's very, very important that you have a copy. So if you don't have a copy and you're waiting for one, please, for the time being, go to vedabase.org, that you will see, vedabase.org, and you can see it online. Choose Bhagavad Gita, and you can get inside that, and you can click the pages. You'll be able to see the text format. Please do that. Right. So if you go, Krishna is in text 31, if you see, Swadharmam abhichavekshya navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yuddhat sheyovanyat kshatriyasya navidyate. Krishna is telling Arjuna, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Now you may be wondering, wow, I thought he said just now that you're spirit soul. Now he's again pointing out that you're a Kshatriya. He's bringing him to a bodily concept, a material concept of his identity, and you'll know why he's doing that. Swadharmam, you see this verse, and Prabhupada explains that very brilliantly. If you go to the last paragraph of this purport, Prabhupada will tell you, what is the meaning of Swadharma? Swadharma means what's your real occupation? What's your real duty? Many times people talk about, what is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita tells you about your duty. True. And what's your duty? I should look after my job nicely. I should be a good citizen of India or America or wherever I am, and I should render service to the nation, and I should have civic sense, and I should be a good citizen, and look after my family well, and do my duties towards my neighbor, and everything. Good human being I should be. You will see if you read the Bhagavad Gita, no, that's not what it is. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you must fight, and your duty is you're a soldier. And that is your identity, your occupational duty, according to the gunas that affect you. That is the duty, that is the work that you're fit to do, and you have a natural inclination to do. There are 4 types of divisions called Varna, right? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They are not simply to be dismissed as caste system or something. That's a very low level of understanding, or rather a low level and a misunderstanding too. So you must understand these varnas are the natural proclivities of every soul who is a human being. And they have these 4 general proclivities, tendencies, inclinations. One is knowledge-based, wisdom-based living. That's a Brahmana. The next is controlling, administrative, physically fighting and protecting. These are all the things. They're called the administrative class, the Kshatriya class, the soldier class, the police class, whatever you want to say. Then there is a mercantile class, the business-oriented and the profit-oriented and working for profit, making money and things like that. That is the Vaishya class. Then there is the low level called the Shudra class, labor class. I'm using a modern terminology, labor. It means their main thing is they can work with their body. They are physically strong, and that's it. Not much of intelligence, not much of mercantile ability, not much of Kshatriya ability, and very little knowledge ability. So they are called the labor class. And these are 4 proclivities among human beings. And basically in our education system, unfortunately, we don't culture anybody to be Brahmana or Kshatriya. A lot of them are towards business-oriented, making money type of understanding in the head. Our education system is hardwired to produce people who will contribute to the economy, to the business, and to having a certain type of an economic status. So it's all focused on Shudras and Vaishyas. So the huge bulk of the population is like that. Even people who have some sort of a Brahminical qualification, who have some sort of a brain or something, even they will be put down to a lower level of engagement. That's the way that people are misused in society today. But this proclivity is something, whether you recognize it or not, it exists. And people are naturally, like they say, water finds its level. They will naturally move towards it in whichever society they are, wherever they are, they'll move towards it. Some people are interested in knowledge, gathering information, giving that information, implementing it, executing it, helping people, and all that stuff together, training people. And the others are interested in doing physically things like war, this, and controlling and putting systems together and helping people to system-based living in organization, this, everything you'll see. And there are others who are interested in making money, business, and setting empires together, etc. And there are others who know plain work, that's all. These things you'll always find. So Krishna is now coming back to the point of that type of proclivity and that type of classification that Arjuna belongs to, that he is a Kshatriya. By occupation and proclivity and the modes acting on him, he is by nature a Kshatriya, means a fighter, a warrior, an administrator, a controller, kingship, kingdom, and protection for people. All these things, chivalrousness, all that is his natural thing. So he's saying, since that is your proclivity and your duty is to protect the people, you have to fight this war. In fact, if you did not fight, you will incur sin. That is the first argument, it says. Because earlier you told me I might as well not fight, because if I fight, I will be sinful. Krishna says, no, if you don't fight, you will be sinful. So that he brings out and tells. So I'll revisit this Swadharma thing again to you. Swadharma means two types of things. My dharma according to my occupational duty, my proclivity, and my dharma according to who I am actually, a spirit soul. Both these are your Swadharmas. Prabhupada is explaining that in the last paragraph, which I think we will get into a little detail a little later. So Krishna's argument is that such Kshatriyas get such opportunities, they become very happy to fight and gain enjoyment. Because earlier in first chapter 31 to 35, you will see he argued that, what am I going to get? Kim no rajena govinda, kim jivite nava. What is the use of living by fighting these people? What pleasure am I going to get? What happiness will I get? What is the use of this war? Because my relatives will die and I have to, live on their blood and make a kingdom out of this thing. I don't want, etc., etc. So Krishna is giving answer to that argument and saying that Kshatriyas have a great opportunity. Now he's talking about material enjoyment and trying to push Arjuna to take it up on that basis, because that's what he said earlier in the first chapter. He argued like that. So he said, if you fight, good thing about a warrior on the battlefield is, if he fights and wins, he will get the kingdom and rule. If he fights, he loses or he dies, he will get the heavenly planets. A Kshatriya who does his duty on the battlefield and dies, he'll get promoted to a very high class 8-star deluxe or 10-star, 15-star deluxe place in the Swargaloka. He'll enjoy Ramba, Kilottama, Menaka, Somarasa, and a huge long lifespan of material life. All this he will enjoy. Actually, this is mentioned for a Kshatriya. And you should be happy, because if you're doing it for material enjoyment, that's what will happen to you. You win or lose, you're going to gain, right? So he puts up this argument that you. Then the third thing he says that, and if you don't fight and run away, dereliction of your duty, people will criticize you. What they'll criticize you for, that you see in 34, he's saying, Akirtim chapi bhutani katayishyanti te avyayam sambhavitasya cha akirti maranad atirichyate maranad. And infamy is worse than dying. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Isn't it? For a lot of the people, having a bad name, your reputation tarred in public, and your idea about you and understanding about you spoiled is very bad. Especially for Kshatriyas, they're so insulted that they'll just go and commit suicide or kill themselves. And you can see many of the stories like that. Insult is the worst thing. Sometimes they don't want to be in the hands of the enemy and get insulted and all these things. They might as well die. They die. They commit suicide. They, put the dagger into their heart themselves. You can hear many stories of this. For a Kshatriya, it is like that. So Krishna is saying, you will suffer infamy and insult, and you'll feel 1,000 times lousier than you're feeling now. I warn you, do not give up your duty. And the other thing is, you will get a name that you ran away out of fear. You're a coward, and people will speak all these things about you. And here it says in 36, Avachyavadams chabahun Vadishyanti tava hitaha nindantas tava samartyam tato dukkatharam nukim. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Look at the arguments Krishna is putting. First he said you will get the heavenly planets. Then he said if you did not fight, your enemies will speak ill of you. And then third he said you will get sinful reactions for not fighting. These are powerful arguments he puts forward. Logic, Shastra, duty as per what is given in the scriptures. And then he says, earth, that I already told you, heavenly planets also you'll get in text shloka 37, he's saying that. And then he's saying, after all these arguments, Sukha dukkha same kritva labhau alabhau jaya ajayau tato yuddhaya yujjasva naivam papam avapsyasi. Priya, can you read that translation that you see on the screen, Priya?
Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin.
Yes, thank you, Priya. So this is another argument he's putting forward. Remember, Krishna is defeating the arguments of Arjuna, chopping them down with logic, rational, with the Shastra, with everything possible. So he's saying, you must also consider that you must simply fight for the sake of fighting, without attaching any of these other things to it. Some people will advise you that just do your duty without attachment. Krishna has started telling Arjuna, you must do your duty without getting attached to the results, to that, to this or anything. Do your job. People should be happy to do their job. And when each one doing their job without any great material fruit of expectations, society will function much better. And people will be helped, people will be protected, especially you in your job. Loss or gain, happiness or distress. Alabho, labho, alabho. Loss or gain, sukha dukkhe. That is happiness or distress. Jaya ajayo, defeat or victory. Any of these things you get, doesn't matter. You should be detached, accept whatever comes, but you should fight in terms of duty. Now, this is what people will quote always and say, do your duty, do your duty. And there's another shloka that says, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Everybody keeps quoting that without understanding what's the background of that. This is only one of the arguments Krishna is putting forward. So now, what Prabhupada is explaining there and what Krishna is actually doing is this. Now that you've understood that you are spirit soul, and you have understood that you have a material body, you're inside the body and inside a material situation wherein you have a duty as a soldier, as a husband, as a wife, as an employee, as whatever you are. you have these two situations, material and spiritual. We are not saying, or Bhagavad Gita is not saying, to hell with the material thing, I am spirit soul. I just have to be worried about that alone. No, that's not what is being mentioned. You're taking both into consideration. That may be true for a person who's totally liberated from the material concept of life, that he doesn't have to bother. But most of the people, in fact, all of the people in the material world, are in various stages of spiritual realization. And especially now in Kali Yuga, very low level of spiritual life and a very huge, confusing material life that they live. A confusing material life. That's what is the bulk of it. So two types of duties are there for everybody. It's called constitutional and conditional duties. Your material life is your conditional material life. So it's a conditional duties, and spiritual life is your constitutional life. Means, who are you originally constitutionally? What is your identity? So you have two identities. One is a temporary material identity as a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmana. Or you have other vocations like, I'm a housewife, I'm an employee, I'm a lawyer, I'm a soldier, I'm everything. All these come under the material classification. Last time I gave you how I saw my first job, and how I got the peon to actually come and order me to do something because I did not have an identity. And later how, when my identity was proclaimed and given to me, I came to know that the peon who actually got a job done out of me was actually working for me as one of my assistants. And things completely changed. Topsy-turvy it was. So same way, we have to know what is our material identity, and Krishna is telling you must act according to that, while at the same time also doing your spiritual duty and progressing in it. It's not that I should do one at the cost of the other. But out of these two duties, what is more important, if you ask, or rather I will ask you, what is a more foundationally important duty? Now I throw this question to you. What do you think is a foundationally more important duty? Now that you've understood who you are, don't just say it because the obvious answer is, yeah, I know. This is the answer. Feel it, think about it. For you as of now, if these two duties are put in front of you, please understand that you're getting to know I am spirit soul, getting to believe in the understanding that I'm spirit soul. So slowly Krishna is also projecting the idea that therefore you must also have spiritual duties. Spirit soul, spiritual duty. Material body, material duty. We have to deal with both of them. That's the sane man. That's what is called Varnashrama. That's what today has degenerated into something called Hinduism. And they don't understand this Varna or Ashrama duties or anything. Okay? So society is based, as per Vedic literature, on a scientific structure of Varna and Ashrama. Ashrama means you're Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. Varna means you're Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, one of them. One is spiritual and the other is material. Your ashrama is your spiritual status for spiritual life. Your varna is for your material life and for your material status. Both together are called varnashrama. Right? It's a very scientific thing. Nicely done. We will discuss more of it, but Krishna will speak more about it in greater detail. This, like I mentioned to you in the beginning, contents of the Gita summarized. A little summary is required for us to understand greater detail. So you have two types of duties. I asked you a question, which of the two would you think is most important? Which of the two do you think is more important? This is the real meaning of understanding Gita. Internalize it and take some time and tell me, which do you think is more important? Any takers? This is a question thrown at you. Sandhya?
I think it should be it is spiritual because this is my understanding, and I'm trying to share with you that when I focus on my spiritual duties, it will guide in my material duties as well. For example, this is the way I think, Guruji.
Very good,
I
very
may be
good. I'm
wrong.
very impressed with that. Yes.
I may be wrong, but what I feel is that if I am spiritually and at an elevated level, like for example, something basic like honesty, that will reflect in my material duties only if I am spiritually tuned to honesty. Say, for example, I'm dealing with a lot of money in my work. It is not my money, it is organization's money.
Oh, really? Please give me a phone number. Let me call. I'm joking.
No, neither am I. I was just joking. I'm not dealing with the money.
I'm just joking. I'm just trying to vibrate with your understanding.
No, but you get the idea. What I'm trying to say
Yes,
is that
yes, very much, very much.
Yeah. If I am tuned to my spirituality, then I will be tuned to giving my 100% to my material duty also.
Okay, Sandhya, that's a very nice answer. But I'm going to counter question you for the sake of everybody else's understanding also. You did make a mention that honesty is something spiritual.
Yes.
Why?
Honesty is something which is a very basic element of any human being, as far as I'm concerned. The trustworthiness of a person comes from, the sincerity of a person comes from honesty.
That doesn't mean it is spiritual.
No, but I don't think that anyone would say that honesty is a bad virtue. Honesty is a good virtue.
Definitely, it's good. But I'm trying to come on a broader level and ask you, any good moral, ethical virtue, does it become spiritual? Considering what you have learned till now about spirituality, about your identity as spirit soul.
Yeah.
I think you're gone off, Sandhya. I want to just point out while till Sandhya comes back, I just want to point out that in the Western world, the Western philosophy and the Western understanding is spirituality means all these great qualities like compassion, honesty, being truthful, charity, all that they classify as something spiritual. That is their classification according to Western idea and philosophy. But I want to tell you that although Sandhya has mentioned that it is picked on it, that's a popular understanding. That spirituality means all these moral, ethical principles. Because the world has become completely immoral and unethical in many different ways, and they have their own philosophies for it. So people are trying to be at least morally, ethically proper. But I want to point out that as per Bhagavad Gita, if you are spiritually oriented in understanding that your spirit soul and Krishna is the supreme spirit soul, then that morality and ethical stuff is simply a byproduct of this. And it is a material quality, which is a quality of highly cultured people. Anarya jushtam asvargyam akirtim karamarjuna, which he mentioned. So it is a material quality, and that high-class material quality is a quality of people who have a great aim in life of getting to the absolute truth. Naturally, people who are cultured, who are following the Varnashrama, you will see they will naturally be ethically, morally perfect. In other words, their material life will be of very high quality, but still it's material life. Because Varnashrama is about material and spiritual together. Like the two tracks on which a train goes. You have on the one, oh, you're not seeing me. On the one side, you have matter material duties. The other type is spiritual duties. This is a very important thing to understand for us. Don't confuse or conflate material, high-class, morally ethical oriented behavior and duty with something spiritual. You can say it's very conducive to spiritual life, but it is not necessarily spiritual. Because if a person is only morally, ethically perfect alone, he will not achieve spiritual life. It's not necessary. That is why you must read Bhagavad Gita. What Krishna is trying to tell here and what he will say towards the end is even greater, because he will take you up gradually and tell you something fantastic in the end. In the end, he's going to tell to hell with moral principles and religious principles. If you do not know the supreme absolute truth, you don't know anything. You don't know anything. That will come in the end. It's very interesting. That's why I'm telling you, hold on. I'm just commenting and taking off on this Sandhya's very interesting comment she made. She made a very good observation that my spiritual life is underlying to a good material life, my foundation. So if I'm spiritually having a good life, which means I have a good foundation, automatically my material life will be pretty good. That's something what she said. In other words, she's recognized that my material life depends on my spiritual life. All right? Okay, Sandhya, I just want to make this side comment on what you have said, because I think and understand from the readings of the Bhagavad Gita also that what you mentioned, that honesty is a spiritual quality, is a very subtly different remark, in the sense that somebody can be very honest and not at all be spiritual also.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of understanding spirituality, like it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Keep this in mind. I want you to think about it, and we're going to come back to it again. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I don't think I've finished my little presentation. I'll finish it in 2 minutes and then take your questions, Girish and Sunita. So coming to Swadharma again, I want you all to understand very well what is matter, what is material, what is spirit, what is spiritual. So since we're involved in the material world and we have a material body, brain, mind, intelligence, ego, everything together, we need to look after that arrangement. And therefore, there are duties on how that should be done. And there are good practices on how that should be done and all that. So that's material. So I remember telling you that you are the gross body and you are the subtle body together, which we refer to as matter and material aspect of you. And you also understood that you are actually spirit soul, and this material stuff is constantly in flux, even in this lifetime and after this lifetime, but the soul remains perpetually the same, right? This thing you understood. So now you are understanding two things: matter, material aspect of you, spirit and spiritual aspect of you. So there is two types of duties you have: material duty and spiritual duty. And Sandhya just said that I would think the spiritual duty is foundational. Okay. Keeping that in mind, and my brief comment, now Krishna is going to tell Arjuna there are two types of actions a man can perform. He can perform sakama. Kama means desire. Mostly it refers to material desire. The desire to enjoy through my senses. The desire to actually, through my mind, intelligence, and my body, have gratification. That's one of the foundational principles of material life. So he's saying, I know that all of us are stuck in that, in the material world. So I'll suggest you to do things so that you get something for yourself. It's called, like I mentioned earlier, what's in it for me? WIFM. I told you that earlier. What's in it for me is a question that people are going to ask whenever they do work in this world. Okay, if I do that, what do I get? then they will judge it immediately based on how much they're getting, what they're getting, whether it is worth the labor. So normally people make very good judgments on this. Nobody is going to do anything for free. Nobody wants to do anything for free. Very, very rarely you will see Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi or somebody. There's less than 0.1% of the whole population of the world. Okay? So you will see mostly people will do only if I can get something out of it. That is called sakama karma. What do I get out of it? So Krishna is egging, pushing Arjuna in terms of sakama. You'll get the heavenly planets. You'll get a kingdom to rule. You'll get name and fame. Why don't you do it? So on the basis of sakama karma. And then he starts speaking to him on nishkama karma also. Without any material profit, how to do things. Which he says is a greater understanding of work. So that we will discuss in the next session, but I'm mentioning that so that you'll be able to compare it. Coming back to our understanding of material duties and spiritual duties. Okay?